under attack. What do? Stand up, fight back. Students and workers under attack. What do? Stand up, fight back.
One of the first things that this administration did was a two-sided attack on transit. One, to strip the rights, labor rights of transit workers. Secondly, to cut transit systems and routes into many neighborhoods. Our next speaker is Brother Bob Kinnear, President of the Amalgamated Transit Union.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen of Toronto. I just want to take a very quick opportunity to thank some of the other representatives that have come here to support Toronto from the ATU. It is an absolute pleasure to stand before you and address Torontonians. But I have to say, it is not a pleasure to watch what this Ford administration is doing to our city. We are all here today in opposition of an agenda, a right-wing agenda, an administration that is determined to dismantle everything that had made our city one of the best places in the entire world to live. And I stand with you today in opposition to a city that denies affordable and adequate public transit for all. I stand in opposition with you to a city that cuts social services for the most vulnerable at a time when they are needed most. I stand in opposition with you to an administration that closes libraries and cuts programs at community centers, programs that keeps our kids off the streets and gives them hope to a better future. I stand in opposition with you to an administration that wants to reduce taxes in Rosedale while imposing user fees on residents of Jane and Finch, Cabbagetown, and Scarborough. A city that actually charges children how to learn how to swim. And I stand with you in total opposition to the Ford plan to privatize everything that isn't nailed down. Those are their words, not mine. The Fords and their spineless minions plan to turn our high-quality public services over to profit-hungry corporations that will turn decent jobs that will allow you to raise a family into insecure, poverty-level jobs that will offer no hope for the next generation. I grew up in a poor single-parent family where my mom sometimes had to choose between paying the rent and feeding her kids. But thankfully, I grew up in a city where there were community centers where kids could go to stay off of the streets and out of trouble, and they weren't charged for that. I grew up in a city that taught kids like me to swim for free, not for a user fee that my mom couldn't afford. I grew up in a city that built libraries to keep up with the growing population instead of closing them and cutting back staff. I grew up in a city that provided an affordable transit system that was the envy of the world. With bus drivers who often looked the other way when my mom, who was obviously one of the working poor, nervously dropped into the fare box a handful of small change that she had scrapped together to hopefully get herself to work and her kids to school. And I grew up in a city that valued public services and offered decent jobs to those who dedicated their lives and their careers to providing these services. That city that I grew up in was Toronto. A city where a poor kid from Cabbagetown had a chance to make something of his life because there were quality public services provided by dedicated public workers. Public workers who were not focused on how much money they could make off of me and my family, but how much they could help me enjoy my childhood and to grow up to realize my potential as a member of our great community and our great city. I want that city back. And there is no reason on earth why we can't take it back. If we work together, stand together, and most importantly, fight together to oppose those who do not know what made Toronto so great. And even if they do understand, who don't care. Thank you for coming. Let's take our city back. And let's stand together, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take Toronto back and make it the great city that it has been for decades. Thank you.